All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't guessed, we are going to be getting into hoop houses, and this year how I plan to build mine, it's going to be a little bit of a hybrid of things that I've done in the past. So kind of like experiences, things that you would always want to change or update, just little tweaks that you would do based on prior year's experience. So go ahead and get into it and show you my design, and we'll show you the step-by-step basis of what I do, as well as finished product. So my hoops are a little wonky. That's because I'm using the electrical conduit that you would find at any of your big box stores or electrical supplies. It's not the metal kind, it's the PVC, or can't remember what the other term for it is, but it's just your PVC conduit that you would get at any of those stores. So some of them are a little bit wonky, but they'll kind of straighten out once they get warmed up and more pliable. They are 1-inch conduit, so that's currently what I use. I like the flexibility as well as the rigidity of it. 1/2 inches just seem to get too wobbly, and anything thicker just doesn't give you the pliability to make the hoops themselves. Now that we got that worked out, I'm using 2x4 10 feet long as the bases, and these end walls are the same thing, 2x4 by 10s, just cut in half. So roughly the outside of these are 5 by 10 feet. I say roughly because the inside is what you're kind of growing in, so you'll be less than 5 feet by 10 feet, and even probably closer to 9 on the link side, and I'll show you why. So we'll get into the frame construction. The frame construction, I use 3-inch decking screws in the corners. The reason I went with the 3-inch is because the 2x are 1.5 inches, so they pretty much go through each one of the boards and finish out flush on the back side. I squared it up using a T-square, so it's relatively straight. It's not super important, but especially if you're a person that has to have things pretty square and straight, big old T-square helps. A framing square would work okay. It's just those are a little bit smaller in the corners, so it's a little harder to do. So I used a T-square that's roughly 3 feet by 2 feet, so that was a little bit easier to use. As far as the reason I did the corner joints the way I did, instead of buttoning them up or doing that, a butt joint is a weak joint, so especially in high winds, and there is tension on these hoops with them flexed over. So a couple different reasons I went with this lap joint over the butt joint is you get a little bit stronger of a joint, and I'm able to drill this hole. It's a 5/8 inch hole, and I'm able to run 1/2 inch rebar 2 feet in the ground to hold all the corners, and I'm able to do that on the outside of the hoop rather than on the inside. It also allows me to kind of secure it without having to do a whole bunch of zip ties or different wonky stuff. This thing is not going to lift straight up off of the rebar. If it's going to go anywhere, it's going to go horizontal one direction or the other. It's not going to lift vertical straight up. So I ended up sticking approximately about 4 to 5 inches outside that, so that I can drill the 5/8 hole about 1 inch out off there, and that gives me plenty of bite room around here, so that when the wind does blow, it's not able to just tear this out. If this was super close to an edge, there's a chance that with the way lumber is built nowadays, it could just split and pull out. So that's the way I did that. As far as this gap under here, a lot of times the 2x4s will settle over time, and it's easy enough also to just shovel up 5 or 6 shovelfuls of soil to that gap and cover that. Another way you could do this too, and I may still do it, but you could also get an extra 2x4 and put a strap board on the bottom and roll your plastic between those two pieces to fill that gap, and then have your end wall plastic up. That's not the way I'm probably going to do it, but just as an FYI, that's the way that you could do it. We'll get into one of the ones I have laying outside so you can see how I attached everything. I drilled holes 1/8 of an inch wider, so this is 1 1/8 inch hole through the 2x4 on the edge, and it's slightly closer to the inside edge than it is the outside edge, so it's a little bit more than 50% closer to the inside. And the reason being is I'm able to put another screw in to hold that pipe in place. I did, for security, run that pipe through about 3 to 4 more inches, just as a stability, so it's not wobbling there, and also it'll act as a little bit of a spike to grab into the soil when it's sitting there. And you can kind of see the 2-foot rebar there runs through perfectly fine. I'll be able to sink that, roughly 18 inches or so, 18 to 20 inches into the soil, and it won't go anywhere. Subsoil will probably be somewhere beyond 12 inches or so, and it'll grab some of that clay subsoil and be perfectly fine. I didn't mention when I was talking about the PVC conduit, but the length of these are, it's got one 10-foot piece, and then it's got a 10-foot piece cut in half to form the other part. So these are roughly 15 feet long, and then, like I said, the span is 5 foot, so it's 15 feet, and then a 5 foot makes that arch. One of these, I had some pieces cut already, so some are shorter there. So this particular hoop is probably closer to, I would say, 3.5 feet or so was this one, and you could tell the arch is probably a little bit better. Again, that's probably about a 5 foot tall hoop. The rest are right at 6 feet, and I'm 6 foot tall. I'm 6'1", 6'2", so it's a little nicer to have that headroom and not have to duck as much. But again, if you wanted to have it a little bit better of an arch, or more symmetric of an arch, you could probably cut these down to roughly 3.5 feet on that second stick when you attach, and get that arch. Okay, what I just did now is I added the strapping in here. This is just to add some rigidity and continuity between the hoops themselves before I add the plastic over the top. It just helps keep the spacing correct, a little bit of the rigidity, and, like I said, continuity between the hoops moving together. And I used a 2-inch rounded top screw on that, and it comes out just barely on the back side. Alright, so this is where some of the earlier planning on the design comes into play. This is the plastic that I use. It's just I think it's $75 a roll or so at Home Depot. You can get something similar, like I said, at other big box stores, but it's 10 foot by 100 foot roll. And I got that, and I designed this based on the plastic. So that was one of the reasons I also utilized that little tip at the corners, so that the hoop houses, or the hoops, are in roughly about 8 inches from the ends, which allows my 10-foot plastic to overlap for clamping and everything. So just a little tip there when you're planning out your hoops, depending on if you want to go bigger or smaller. Make sure that you're utilizing the most out of your plastic, and you're reducing the amount of cuts. As far as putting the plastic on, you can see it comes to the end of the 10-foot board, and then I just put this over the top. I knew I cut roughly about 12 to 14 extra inches here, and before I tried to do this, you can see it's kind of getting breezy. I clamped the corners on each side evenly, so then when I pull it over the top, I can clamp it on the other side, and now the plastic is held in place square and just the way I want it. So it's good to have either these little 60-cent clips. These are really good clips. I got them from Home Depot, or the larger potato chip clips or binder clips, whatever they call them, to kind of help keep it in place so that you can get the bottom strap board in. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the same strapping up here, roll it a few times in the plastic, and then use that 2-inch rounded screw and put that strapping on the side there. So I'll show you that here in a second. We got the bottom strapping in there. As you can see, we rolled up that extra plastic and then secured it with the 2-inch screws into the side of the frame. And I did not go past the pole with that strapping. Reason being is if I went past it, this would be super tight and I wouldn't be able to wrap this edge around the pole to get a good seal. So a little bit of a tip there, make sure that strapping doesn't go past that pole. Did the same on both sides. Again, strapping doesn't go past the pole so that you can make that nice seal there. And now we'll get on to the end walls. All right, and here we are. Here's the end wall. I can show you how I finished that up. Used a piece of strapping there, rolled up. Put 3 screws in it. That'll be plenty. 3 2-inch screws with rounded head. Again, you can see how that worked out with leaving that at the post. I was able to wrap that around and then put this clamp and wrap it around so it's got that nice airtight seat. Ideally, I had 8-foot strapping. Ideally, you'd want to run this pretty much to the post, but this will work just fine. It's not going to allow too much airflow in there, but overall, came out just like I wanted it to. As far as opening it up, you can do your clamp orientation however you wish. I've got a few on the inside that you can see that are holding just the sidewalls in place. And then these fold back on the inside. You can see them folded back on there just so they don't tear at the plastic. Outside ones stay there. And then these are nice to have on the top because when you want to open the outside easy enough, you can just unpinch it, roll it down, just like that. And you're able to go ahead and pinch the flap off to the side. So can I show you that real quick? And that's it. And you just pinch the flap. I have seen these flip up in winds, so they've self-sealed themselves. So I do suggest highly getting those clips and just making sure that that flap is pinched down good. And if a breeze does come through and whip this up, it kind of keeps it from self-sealing itself up like that, you know. So you still got that airflow up there. So little pro tip on that one as well, in case you build this and you don't do your clamp situation like that. Like I said, I have seen where the flaps have come up and ended up cooking the plants regardless. So that'll be the end of the video. If you have any questions, comments, or even improvements that you would make on your build, give us a shout and a comment in the comment section below. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.